All right, call the regular meeting of the Hudson River Black River Regulated District to order. Roll call.
Let me just get the time. Teams. David Bergstresser.
Here.
Albert Hayes. Here. Mark Finkel.
Here.
Thomas Stover.
Here.
Michael Clark.
Here.
Robert Leslie.
Here.
Robert Fulton.
Here.
John Hodgson.
Here.
Richard Ferrari. Here.
Thank you.
Chairman.
All right, need a motion to adopt any revisions to the meeting agenda? We probably will hold an executive session somewhere during the meeting to discuss litigation and personnel.
Collective bargaining. Collective bargaining.
And collective bargaining. Need a motion to accept the revision? Okay, Mr. Stover?
Second.
Mr. Stover, Mr. Hayes, to adopt the agenda
Yeah.
As revised.
As revised.
as revised.
All righty. Is there has anybody signed up to speak?
Oh, yes. Sorry.
It's okay. Thanks. Sharon Hammond, would you like to?
I'm here regarding the project.
Sure. You want to step up?
You could stand right
Sure.
here if you would, please.
They're not on camera.
Right, you're not, but we want to hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm here regarding the Hawkinsville
Mhm.
Dam project, and it's nice to meet all of you. First, I would like to invite any or all of you who have not visited personally the Hawkinsville Dam to please do so if you have an opportunity. I think you'll, not only the dam, but the impoundment area upriver from it, I think you'll get a much clearer picture of what is actually involved. Last night, the town of Boonville held their regular monthly board meeting, and Mr. Fulton was there, as well as approximately 25 citizens of the Boonville area. Those citizens were there specifically to make comments and ask questions regarding the Hawkinsville Dam. Of great interest, I think, should be to this board is the fact that, yes, a number of them that were there, the citizens were actual property owners of riverfront property, as I am, but also a number of the citizens were just regular Boonville residents who enjoy that stretch of the Black River, referred to as the impoundment area, for recreational purposes. Mr. Fulton did a nice job of answering questions and accepting comments, and we certainly appreciate that he was there. However, I would like to stress how many people are truly concerned that the dam demolition is an option that's being considered. They are concerned for a number of reasons. Obviously, the riverfront property owners have a more vested interest than the others, but a number of reasons. And one thing I wanted to share that Mr. Fulton I wasn't able to share last night is a camp neighbor of mine, an elderly woman who unfortunately now has Alzheimer's and is in a nursing home, told me approximately 15 years ago, I've owned property on the river for 20 years, she told me about 15 years ago that decades ago some sort of repair was done to the Hawkinsville Dam, and at that point the river basically ran right through somehow the dam. And I thought what was interesting is recalling what she told me, that basically the river was just a trickle at that point. And she said, for about a year, and as I said, I wish I could now contact her and get the exact period of time she's talking about. But she said, obviously, the only advantage to that was that it gave the riverfront residents an opportunity to go in and clean out litter, etc., from the riverbed. And then she said the following year the dam was back in operation and the river returned to its normal level, the impoundment area, I guess I should be saying. So I wanted you to be aware of that, and maybe you can go back and research that some to find out exactly, when that happened. We are concerned, as I mentioned, for recreational reasons. The river is used by people who fish, kayakers, canoeists, tubers, and people who just swim there on a hot day. There is DEC fishing access site areas. Myself, I have enjoyed and feel very fortunate to have a seasonal property on the Black River for the past 20 years. And I have, over those years, seen numerous people that do not actually live in the impoundment area enjoying the river for recreational purposes. Just this past summer in August, there was probably, I'm going to guess, a party of about 12, 20-something-year-olds tubing down the river on a hot day. One of the tubes was filled with a picnic basket and you get beverages. And how wonderful it was to just observe them truly enjoying that river. Different people have told me when I mentioned what part of the river I happen to live on that, my friends and I, my family and I, we so enjoy kayaking that part of the river. It's our favorite part of the Black River to kayak. So I think what needs to be taken into account by this board when a final decision is made is that if obviously the dam is removed, the river flow is going to be affected. The depth and the width of the river could be greatly affected, especially listening to my camp neighbor with her comments of what happened decades ago. Another concern those of us who particularly live along the riverfront have is how our wells may be affected, as the water table may be affected because of the change in the water level if the dam's removed. Also, you should know a number of the summer seasonal people depend on drawing water actually from the river. They just bring in their own bottled water for drinking purposes. But otherwise, for their toilets and sinks and showers and baths, they use river water. Okay? And certainly, not last or least, is the effect on the wildlife and the plant life. Everything from newts, turtles, mergansers, bald eagles were seen last winter swimming up or flying up above the river. Beavers, there are just a variety, not to mention the different fish species of animal species as well as plant species that depend upon the river in the state that it currently is. Any questions? From the past board minutes, I understand the Black River Area Administrator retired several months ago, and the Hudson River Administrator is now in charge of both areas. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, and that's working out good, and everybody's familiar with
We're watching it.
everything? Okay, good. I also wanted to ask, because the citizens are going to be obviously, with the timetable, as quick as it is to make a final decision within the next few months, we're going to be organizing. And I just wanted to make sure that I've got the current addresses, both email, a phone number, and snail mail that residents of the Boonville area and beyond, if wanted, could call or write or send messages regarding comments or questions they have. So I've got for snail mail, the Black River Area Office, 317 Washington Street, Suite 614, Watertown. Is that correct?
Yes.
Good,
Okay,
yeah.
and for the email, I have BRAO@HudsonRiverBlackRiverRegulatingDistrict.com.
Correct.
HRBRRD.
Just the initials.
Right, right, but I mean, do I send it to BRAO or because Mr. Hudson is now in charge of both, should it go to H?
Mr. Clark has a card that has all three of those
Oh, okay.
addresses for you.
And the phone number I have 315-788-5440.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to let you know that we're very concerned, and also that it isn't just the riverfront property owners that are concerned about the possibility of the dam being taken down and greatly affecting the flow of the river in the impoundment. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Just to let you know, those are all points that we will consider.
Thanks.
I spoke to Mr. Fultan last night a little bit about it. something that you guys can actually help with is, in order for us to control what river flow, we use the dams. I mean, so keep that in mind. If you're going to contact people concerning the dam itself, keep in mind that the dam itself is used to augment and control flow of the river. So encourage it from that direction, because I'll be honest with you, it's more important to us. That's a more important point to us than recreation. Not that recreation isn't an important part. Okay? But for us to leave the dam there in order to control the river is a more important point for us to. Okay? Thanks. All right. Anybody else want to speak? Okay. Thank you. All right. I need approval of the November 13th regular board minutes.
I make that motion.
So Mr. Hayes, Mr. Finkel.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Report of the executive director.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Month of November certainly was not quiet, even though you might think otherwise, given the time of year. Senior staff and indeed all the staff is still quite busy at the Sacogaga field office. I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but I'm just going to mention that many things going on, include the access permit renewals around Great Sacogaga Lake. Mr. Hudson will speak about that more. Senior staff also is still in collective bargaining with CSEA. There is an engineering proposal that engineers of the Regling District have reviewed the qualification statements, and I believe our chief engineer has a recommendation for you today as far as an award goes. Of course, the chief engineers also and engineering staff have also been involved with Hawkinsville Dam evaluation. And again, I point out that that's an evaluation. At this point, it's early on, and there are we're at the point where alternatives are being considered, and it's not. There's certainly no clear direction at this point, as I understand the process. Also, the staff continues to deal with the other issues that still linger for many years, Niagara Mohawk litigation, and also we general counsel may or may not embellish on that, as well as the issue that's still out there with Erie Boulevard and Headwater benefit payments. And the last thing I wanted to add was that to the point of our guest speaker here, indeed the administrator is handling both areas. And I'll be the first to say that it's working quite well. Mr. Hodgson's established a routine so that he can cover both areas. And of course, the technical side of it, the management side of it, there was never any concern that he could do that. We knew that from the start. He had a firm handle on everything, and where he has really developed the system is just in scheduling. It's an awful lot of scheduling, and he's got his support staff in both areas in tune with that now, and it seems to be working quite seamlessly. So I want to point that out to the board. This has been in place since the end of July, and I believe I told you folks at that point that I continue to update you. You take a closer look at it. We're now at the end of the year, and I want to mention again that it is working. And I think that I'm convinced that we're able to continue to do that, to manage both watersheds in the way we're doing. Anybody's got any questions?
Yeah, I spoke to you a little bit this morning about it. I mean, was it 3-4 years ago, we laid off, how many? 12? Okay, and we've hired back.
Between layoffs and retirement, yes.
In retirement, 12. And then, of course, we lost our surveyor.
Well, so the total number, the
Right.
total number departing over the last 3 years, if you want to look at that, is about 12, and of that number,
We've brought back 3?
we have brought back
4?
4 in total.
Okay. And this is just for the record, how many projects do we have on hold right now that will be coming up soon? And it's nothing to do
Well, I
with
think they're
John, that's
progressing
just,
now.
yeah, I don't wanna get to a point where all of a sudden we've got all these maintenance projects that are on hold that we're gonna start looking into and starting up, and
Well, and again, a lot of that.
I don't want that to impact us all of a sudden where we're,
Mr. Chairman, that's a good point.
Where
Those
John's all of a
projects are
sudden
now
over.
starting up again. They're in the engineer, most of them are in the engineering phase at this point,
Okay.
or phases. And it's likely if an actual construction project is warranted based on those assessments, then, a contract will follow. But most of that work is work that will be
it's
contracted
out, yeah.
The lead time is long, and that's
Okay.
one of the reasons why we, they should get the priority they deserve.
Oh, I understand that, and I know we're gonna be starting them up, I know we're starting to.
That's, and
Clean
that's
up
why
what
Mr. Fulton has for the,
Right.
has for the board, a recommendation today, I believe, for Indian Lake, which is one of our structures. But I think back to your point that,
We've put off an awful lot of work.
We're still down eight people from where we were 3.5 years ago.
And we've been squeaking by with it, I don't want it to be the norm, and then all of a sudden,
I think,
don't wanna compromise our mission.
It's my opinion at this point that really in terms of our operations, that we've, I just lost the word I was gonna use, but it was equilibrium is what I was gonna say. I think I believe we're at a state where we are managing quite well with the equilibrium.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not to say everything's the same as it was done.
No, it's not, it can't be.
For decades prior to that. That shift in May of 2010 that has really caused us to take a different approach in dealing with a lot of things.
Right.
Where we see an impact, and it's not necessarily a negative impact, but where we've seen the impact is for one thing, at the on Great Saginaw Lake, in dealing with the erosion control work. We're not able to do it the way we had done for many years before that. And as evidence to that that workboat is still sitting at the Sacandaga field office, and it can't put to sea with the crew we've got because we don't have the staff to do it.
Right. These are all things, and if anything, and God forbid, if anything, everything is being coordinated through John. Anything happened to John for a little while?
Well, that's
There's
a
no
good
backup.
point. We're also fortunate, and with just the size of our organization and the number of people we've got. I've always said that we're like a football team that does not have a second string, and it's been that way for a long time. Even when we had more people, we never had a lot of depth.
No, there's not a lot of depth. And now we have even less.
I will say that most of us, there's a lot of cross training, and that's a good, not only a good thing, it's a necessity. Where, for at least a period of time until things are stabilized, if there's an interruption and if somebody's sick or somebody's injured, God forbid, we can pick up those duties and we've done it.
Right.
We have done it quite a few times.
Things have gone well. I mean, but we have been working skeleton crew. We have been working
And we, like I said, the people that we have brought back have been a tremendous help.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that we're at a state where we are getting the job done without having to constantly rob Peter to pay Paul. It's better than it was. I don't expect that we'll ever get back all the folks that we had. And again, I want to point out that, we had the shift in the way we approach things.
Right.
For example, I said that the workboat's not going out on the water. It's not. That's not to say we're not doing erosion control work.
Sure.
We certainly are. Our administrator can address that in more detail. But that work is still being done, and then it's going to continue. I mean, we're coming into that season now. We're doing it. We're just doing it in a different way.
I'm trying to anticipate ahead a little bit.
And that,
Yeah. When you get into the summer season over there, and if we start some projects over on the Black River side, even though they're all engineering, it's still going to command a little bit of attention.
Exactly.
And believe me, this is no affront to anything that you've been doing a great job. But again, it's been slow.
Right. Again, thanks to staff.
Yes.
Staff that I do have in both areas have been
Oh, absolutely.
remarkable, and they're all on board. They know our goal, and they get the job done.
Yep.
It's everything is operations normal right now, and hats off to them. Myself, I have last week, for instance, we did a core samples in gates 4 and 5. Myself, the crew at Black River Field Office, and Mike Mosier, we're actually down in there doing the core drill. So
The operations
that's kind of
Right.
yeah, the operations engineer. So we're, I'm getting my hands dirty too, and
No, I understand
We're
that.
working
I'm
at
just
it.
trying to look ahead a little bit.
yeah, and I'm not afraid to
Anticipate.
do that as time allows and my schedule allows. But
Right. And that could be the rub, as time allows and as your schedule allows.
Right,
Because
exactly.
I don't want to burn you out. I don't want to.
no, and like I said, the 3 guys that we have up there are very,
Very capable.
talented, and for the preventive maintenance and the schedules that we have forthcoming, they're capable
Right.
of doing that. The jobs are too big, we contract out, but anything we can do in-house, we try to do in-house.
Sure.
And
I mean, that's, I just want to point that out, that we've got to think about. how it's gonna
Mr.
impact
Chairman,
when we get
I
busy.
completely agree that we need to continue to look at this, because we can't just be thinking about the next 6 months or 12
No.
months. It's,
I know we've got a lot of
it
big
needs to
projects
work
on
for decades to come. So
both sides of the
structure.
state. Yeah, we've got projects on both sides that are coming up. So. And I mean, I've been watching this for 2-3 years now, where we have just delayed, put off. So, for financial reasons. And now we're having a chance to get back on track. So. Okay. Any other questions? Tom, Mark?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's get to the contracts. The Albany office lease option resolution.
Mr. Chairman, on page 20 is my memo, 21 is the resolution. Just to refresh the board's memory, back last September, we entered into a lease agreement where we're at in Albany with David L. Gruenberg. There's an option, and that was a 1-year agreement with a 1-year option.
Okay.
The option is now up or available, and all we need to do to execute that option is to give the landlord 90 days notice that we intend to continue for the next year.
Okay.
I think we should do that, and in the resolution, I'm basically recommending the board authorize me to give the landlord that 90 days notice so we can execute the 1-year option.
Yeah, any comments?
Pretty straightforward.
Keep the office full. There's what, 5 in the office?
Say again?
How many work in the office? 5, 6? Take a guess.
7?
7?
Which one?
Y'all been in the office.
I think there's 6.
6? Okay. Thanks.
We shrunk the space down.
I know we did, yeah. All right, good.
I mean, for the price, I mean, it's, again, I think we have excellent space in an area that keeps us still out of Albany, and, you know, we don't pay for parking. So, I mean, I still consider it probably one of the better
Okay.
lease arrangements that exist, so.
Need a motion to approve the option?
Mr. Stover and Mr. Finkel.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Take care of it. All right, Mr. Fulton next. Resolution to authorize consultants to complete the Part 12D safety inspection.
Thank you. Yes, on page 22 is my memorandum, 23 is the resolution, I believe, and hard to believe that 4 years has already passed since our second Part 12, but the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission requires independent consultant safety inspections every 5 years of the FERC licensed facilities. And at Conklinville, that would be due February 1st, 2015. So we'll need to start working in 2014, both procuring and engineering services, as well as having that individual on site and have them complete a report. So we're back at it again. That 5 years has gone by pretty quickly.
Refresh my memory, is this the one where they considered boring and?
Yeah, you might remember that was
Concrete.
John Northrup through
Okay.
GEI
Yes.
was our previous independent consultant, and that study led to our geotechnical work. The first phase. The second phase is one of the many projects that we've delayed, which we are actually being a little bit closer to restarting with GEI. But yeah, that was a bit of work that came out of that last go around. We'll have to continue the recommendations, continue on the recommendations of the previous independent consultant, and there may very well be additional recommendations that come out of this next consultant, or at least piggybacking on the previous consultant's recommendations, making sure we complete that work. So we're seeking authorization by resolution for the procurement of engineering services for the qualified firm and individual.
And here again, we're talking about some work we've delayed for what, 4 years? Almost?
The work that came out of the previous Part 12 inspection has been delayed for at least 2.5, 3 years.
3 years, okay. All right, so I need a motion to authorize.
Mr. Finkel? Second. Mr. Stover?
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thanks.
Certainly.
All right, and the last one would be the Indian Lake Engineering Assessment.
Right, we
This is the-
did include a memorandum that indicated we would be supplying.
And the board has
memorandum,
that.
I think.
Yeah, we just got
Should
that.
have the memo and
Did pass
resolution.
out a 2-page memo from me on the first engineering assessment for Indian Lake Dam and the evaluation of the statement of qualifications. As you know, the DEC dam safety regulations require us every 10 years to complete an engineering assessment. So we're in the first phase of getting that first assessment completed. We had requested and received 16
That is a lot of
Quali-
respondents.
16 qualification packages by the deadline of October 4th. And it took our 3-person evaluation team a little bit of time to work through those. But we did individually review all 16, the 3 of us, and assign the scores to each of those respondents' qualifications according to our request for qualification package. The second page of my memo details the scoring both by the evaluation team members as well as the average total score. And the firm that had the highest average total score was Bergman Associates. And so the evaluation team recommends conditionally awarding the work to Bergman Associates, and also seeks board acceptance of the evaluation team recommendation and authorization to request a scope of work and a fee proposal from Bergman. And I'll be happy to answer any questions about the project or about the evaluation process if you have.
Is this dam safety?
It's DEC dam safety driven.
Okay.
The new regulations that came out in 2009 require for this structure to have an assessment every 10 years. And there was some time frame given coming out of that 2009 statute change. We informed DEC that we would not be able to make that timeline as a result of our funding constraints between 2009 and 2013. So we're now back, trying to get back on track and start by hiring a consultant to complete that engineering assessment.
Right.
And I should mention too that in addition, it's not purely just an assessment, but they will also be reviewing the structure for any necessary remedial measures.
How old is that dam?
So over 100 years.
Okay.
1898, right? That's what the plaque says?
I believe
Wow.
so.
Good work back then.
Yeah.
And it hasn't had much modification, I don't believe.
There's something
Gate
about,
structures were modified right before the district took control of it in '85. I don't think there've been any changes to the earthen embankment since it was originally constructed. Don't think there was any modification to the stone spillway or the stone dam. So it's pretty much an original structure since
that was,
late 1890s.
still got the logs in there, doesn't it, for the spillway?
Yeah, there's some soft logs and, you know,
It's been a couple of years since I went out there today.
there will likely be some, you know, some recommended improvement measures out there too, as one would expect with a structure that old.
Right.
Hasn't, you know, hasn't had a lot of attention to, or now needs to come up to compliance to new regulations. So, including capacity, discharge capacity, spillway issues possibly. And, hopefully we won't find any structural issues in terms of stability, but that is yet to be seen, so.
If it stood for 115
Yeah,
years.
it has passed the test of time.
Yeah. All right, so I need a motion to award the engineering assessment to Bergman Associates.
So moved.
All right,
Mr. Hayes, Mr. Stover.
a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, opposed? So moved.
Yep.
Thanks. All righty. Mr. Leslie.
My report is on page 24 of the board packet. I'll highlight a couple things. The New York State Attorney General has agreed to represent the regulating district in pursuit of its effort for a declaratory judgment on the issue of the release executed by Erie Boulevard Hydropower. So we're pressing forward with that matter, as long as the board acquiesces to us suing Erie Boulevard. We were able to conclude the Albany Engineering versus Regulating District case. With your authorization in hand, staff presented payment of $841,374 to Council for Albany Engineering in time, so that we didn't have to pay any per diem.
So we've closed the book on that, and now we pursue the monies owed to us
Right.
from the Headwater benefits.
Right. We have not yet received a satisfaction of judgment filed by the court, filed with the court. However, that may have gone to the Attorney General's office and just not worked its way back to us yet.
Okay.
What we did receive was a copy of a letter that Albany Engineering sent to the Secretary of FERC, which Mike is presenting a copy of to me here, which basically indicates that Albany Engineering has reached an agreement with the regulating district with regard to headwater benefit payments between 2003 and 2008, and indicating that once FERC authorizes the regulating district to begin collecting headwater benefits from 2009 forward, they'd be happy to pay us. They're just delaying things.
Yeah.
A little bit more because that's, who they are.
What they do.
So we will continue to pursue the matter with FERC and see if we can get those headwater benefits on the way.
To start.
I'm sorry, back to what you were just saying, but isn't the mechanism that FERC would actually collect from the hydros that owe headwater benefits?
Right. Our understanding would be that FERC would collect the headwater benefit directly from the hydros and then end up paying us. Whether FERC has in place a mechanism similar to our state statutory authority, which allows us to collect directly, I'm not sure.
Sure. That's an interesting.
We haven't gotten an answer from them yet on that. However, Albany Engineering is also the first of the several hydros that owes us a headwater benefit that appears ready and willing to pay it. In that regard, we're further along with Albany Engineering than we are with Erie, for instance. With respect to the Niagara Mohawk case pending in federal court, depositions for Mr. Clark and Mr. Fultan have been completed. Depositions for former board members Mr. Pentoff and Mrs. McDonald have also been completed. Deposition for Mr. Ferrara has been scheduled, and NIMO has also produced 2 expert witness reports. So we're reviewing those, and suspect in executive session we can talk a little bit more about where we want to go from here.
Okay.
Open to questions, do you have any?
Not at the moment.
I have none.
Nope.
No.
Somebody handed me do we have to do anything with this vehicle use policy?
Yeah.
You want to discuss it in Rick's report?
Yeah, you can do it now.
Shall we do it now?
Yeah,
It all runs together.
right, it all runs together. There is a draft vehicle use policy that was handed out, which is in response to a memo that we received from Larry Schwartz, Secretary to the Governor, at the end of November, indicating that the state vehicle use policy has changed. Although it doesn't say so specifically, it's my understanding, based on basically reading the news and kind of keeping abreast of what's going on, there was an issue at another agency with regard to vehicle use. In the investigation of that other agency, certain loopholes in the state vehicle use policy were identified, and through this new memo and request for revisions to the statewide vehicle use policy, those loopholes are being closed. What you have before you is a document that purports to address each of those questions for the regulating district. I also have a comparison of our existing policy to the new policy that you have before you. Anybody that wants a copy of that, I can either let you review it now or make a copy and get
It's
it to you
available
via
on,
email.
it's available on the website, isn't it? Or is it?
Well, our current policy is available on the website, and you have before you what we would
The
revise it
draft.
to. This basically just,
Highlights.
highlights it, puts it in stark colors as to what the changes are. There's, some things that were pretty obvious before are now more explicit. Maybe the most important element is that agencies and authorities shall participate in the LENS program administered by the Department of Motor Vehicles, which allows us, management, to see when somebody's driver's license has been revoked or suspended or has a restriction placed on it. I don't think we had explicitly had that capability before.
Yeah.
However, our policy did require each individual who may have had a traffic violation against them, they were required to tell us. So now, not only are they required to tell us, but we can find out independently. In a shop as small as ours, it's not difficult to determine, when somebody has a restriction on their driving privileges such that they shouldn't be driving a regulating district vehicle.
Right.
In a bigger agency with thousands of people, you might not notice when somebody, is being driven to work by their wife because they got a DWI. For us, it's hard for any of us to miss that because we are so small. So that's basically what's going on. We have the board has a policy of reviewing major policy changes.
Policy on policies.
Right, policy on policies. So you're supposed to be able to look at something over a 3-month period before you make changes, which you could do.
Or we can waive it.
Or you can waive it because this is a statewide policy that really you've got to do anyway. There's nothing in there that's a great deviation from what we already do.
Well,
At all? No.
nothing, okay. While we're on the subject, our fleet is aging,
That's one way to put it.
okay.
Small.
Starting to
aging.
nickel and dime us to death?
We're at that point where it will.
Okay, so we really, every time I hear, all I hear about is something else is going in the shop, major repairs. That's just not financially effective. Yeah. Something to consider in the near distant future.
Is there any way of leasing vehicles?
Yes, that's an
There is,
option.
yes.
That's an
Okay.
option. As long as we get.
Right, we still need to take a look and see whether leasing or purchase is a better option for us. Many of the vehicles, for instance, the vehicle that was up here, running between here and Stillwater a couple times a week, plus going down to Albany a couple times a month, they're putting 30,000 miles a year on that car. Wouldn't be cost effective to lease that vehicle. There's others that have much lower miles per year on them. Rick is in a better position to
Put a lot more years on
Right. Well,
Yeah.
leasing is a better option based on some of the. There's no state contract right now for leasing. There will be, I'm told, but there are state contracted vehicle vendors that offer leases that people are taking advantage of. The neat thing about those leases is that some of them are higher mileage leases versus what you and I would experience. They're generally lower mileage and you pay X cents per mile. So I've done a quick and dirty analysis, and even for some of them where we do some additional mileage, it may also, in those cases, be beneficial to lease, but.
If it's a high mileage lease.
Right, you could
okay.
take a high, and versus outlaying, whatever,
Right.
$28,000 for whatever. But again, we need to get approval.
Well, if the board wishes, I'll revisit our budget for the previous 3 years, which did have
We did budget in for 2 vehicles.
Yeah, they are, right.
Well,
Yeah,
one vehicle and another one coming up.
There's vehicles
Right.
budgeted, the initial analysis that would need to be provided to the Division of Budget is complete.
Right.
The Division of Budget will not even look at them without approval from deputy secretary, blah, blah, blah. So-
Yes.
I will pursue that again, and if the board wishes, I'll bring a recommendation back to you. I do want to point out, when we say vehicles, it's plural. We may be,
I know.
it's not 30, we're talking about one or two.
One or two.
Yeah.
Um,
Like SFO, I mean pickups, you know, around the lake or something like that. That'd be good for a lease, even in the
Correct,
lake.
yeah, they're also, right, you could, right, the light-duty vehicles are all, you know, lease is an option.
I'll pursue that over the next month and bring a
Okay,
recommendation to the,
Look into it, because we gotta do something.
for action at the next meeting.
Yeah, we have two choices, either start thinking about replacing or buy our own tow truck. Or walk. Okay, thanks. All right, any questions?
My question.
All right, see, Mr. Farrar.
Mr. Chairman, my report can be found on pages 25 to 61. I will focus primarily on my summary report on page 25. Assessments, we've gotten through the deadline for assessments, which was October 31st, and to date, we've received on the Black River side $1,058,022, and that's well over 90% of the assessments. There's approximately $112,913 due. Of that, approximately $55,000 is NIMO.
We're not gonna
Probably
see
not
that.
going to get. So we're really looking to collect about 60 or 70,000, and we should be getting that probably before the end of January.
Okay.
I would expect to get probably 2/3 of that before the end of the month. On the Hudson River area side, we've collected all of the assessments that were scheduled to be collected, and the only thing out there would be Rensselaer County, which would be due, I believe, in January.
Yeah.
And that leads me to significant disbursements. Between now and April, we have property taxes due in January, around $714,000. Our retirement bill is due around February, $211,000. And then the final Fulton Hamilton past due tax payment, $890,000, is due in April. It's $1.8 million.
That's one of the back,
Correct, that's
Okay,
past due
back
taxes.
You were just mentioning the property taxes, you said 714,000. I
Correct.
think it's worth noting that that's not the total property tax.
No, because Saratoga takes an offset.
right, because we've got an offset.
Their assessment. Speaking of Saratoga, then once we pay the Fulton County Hamilton final, the only thing left in past due taxes will be the final Saratoga taxes due at the end of this budget cycle, June 2015.
So that's what the offset's been paying off?
Correct.
Okay, the
Correct.
back taxes.
Right, it's doing both.
Right,
It's
okay.
covering past due and current.
And current.
Unfortunately, it's primarily covering current.
Okay.
It's chipping away at the past due.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe the latest number on that payment is around, I don't think I have it, it's probably 900,000 and change, somewhere in that neighborhood that will be due at the end of our budget cycle. So, but again, we have to get there first. So
Right.
during the significant disbursement period, the key payment will be the state share, which comes right around April. So there's a possibility, hopefully we don't have to delay the Fulton Hamilton County, but we need that state share to make that payment. So
Okay.
I don't think 30 days, 20 days here and there is going to be a big deal. I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention.
Okay, thanks.
Janine Caruso evaluated the bond underwriting RFPs. That's on page 52 and 53, and based on her review and assessment, she has recommended that we go with Roosevelt and Cross, who is the same underwriting firm that we had engaged to do the tax anticipation note way back when. They do a ton of municipal issues, and they are the best. So this was a no-brainer. There are, I believe, 2 on that list on 53 MWBEs. They didn't even respond. And most of them, and she did reach out to all who did not respond, and I believe the comment was generally that the size of the issue was too small, which didn't surprise us. Many of the underwriters won't even get involved at a certain threshold. They just don't even look at it.
Amazing.
I believe, I just wanted to I have an update on contracts. Both these are in your report, but these are updated. This is the legal services and the non-legal services. As we've been doing over the years, we've been kind of satisfying the public authority requirement for annual review of contracts, doing kind of a monthly thing. I'd like to, in April, when we do the investment policy review, procurement, and the other policies that we have to review in April, that we include a complete, consolidated, thorough, focused review on contracts during that month. Not that we still, you will still be provided every month with all the contracts that are outstanding, but I'd like to do something more formal.
All right.
Just to make sure that, and whether we do a resolution or not, I don't think it's necessary, but, you know, it'll be noted.
It'll bring it to our attention.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this is, and these will be the reports that I'll provide. There'll be a memo just outlining the
That sounds good.
highlights of 2879 Public Authority Law, just to make sure we're looking at the right stuff.
Yeah, well, a lot of them outstanding.
Again, many of them back to the delay, and
Right. Okay.
the board has any questions? Or the,
No, good job. Thank you. Any questions?
No.
Thank you. Let's get to the chief engineer's report here.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Still
Chairman.
got some gas left in your tank after moving?
Oh, yeah. My report begins on page 62. Summary for the Hudson River area, we had, between 30 and 50% of historic average precip in November, and fairly dry in at Conklinville, Mayfield, and Indian Lake. That gave us about 80 and 91% respectively at GSL and Indian Lake for inflow, and our release at Great Sacandaga and Indian Lake was about 134 and 85% respectively of historic average. The Black River area, we had precip between 83 and 97% of historic average. And our inflow at Stillwater Reservoir was about 108% of average. And we conserved a little bit of water with a release of about 74% of historic average. And you can see that benefited us in terms of the graphs that are supplied there at Stillwater in particular. By the end of October, we were able to turn around that somewhat of a deficit that we had below our historic average, and have since been able to creep right back up there, which we historically and traditionally do because the fall rains usually start to refill the reservoir, and the flow in the Black River tends to limit our ability to make some releases. Well, that really wasn't as much the issue this go-around. It was primarily just the additional inflow with a little bit cut back on the release allowed us to recover that elevation in Stillwater. So the rest of our reservoirs, Fulton Chain, as you can see in the graphs, we're pretty much right where we should be. In fact, we're within a few tenths of a foot from our desired elevation. And Sacandaga, we're only about 0.2 of a foot off. Indian Lake, we're about 1/2 foot high, but have chugging along with some fairly decent releases in the last week or so, which is bringing us a little bit closer to target. So right now, anyway, in a good position. If the snow starts to accumulate, we'll continue to draw those reservoirs down, and at this point, it certainly looks favorable to have the space we need, capacity we need to store some spring runoff. But of course, there's a bit of time between now and mid-March when we actually need to receive those waters. So, in terms of the projects, we hit a couple of them already. Conklinville, third Part 12 safety inspections coming up next year. The Indian Lake engineering assessment, we'll be hopefully starting that in the next couple of months with Bergman Associates. The Hawkinville remediation removal study, Kleinschmidt's continuing with their, or has completed their field work, probably continuing with their desktop studies and analysis, preparing a report for us. We had a preliminary pre-permitting conference call with DEC, Army Corps of Engineers, dam safety, as well as fishery and wildlife folks from DEC, just to try and get a sense from them what they potentially would want to see in terms of the report that Kleinschmidt's putting together, areas of concern, and both from a structural dam safety standpoint as well as from an environmental standpoint. Sediments behind the dam are a concern and something we'll be examining. Wildlife, potential for some endangered species like bats that might be present in that area. Things that Kleinschmidt will need to consider when it puts together its, full range assessment of the environment, socioeconomic uses, recreational, and every aspect of the structure and its use for us to make a determination. Old Forest Six Lake engineering assessment still ongoing. They're completing the safety inspection report as well as the engineering assessment report itself, and I would expect another month or so we should see a report maybe by the beginning of February at the latest. I would think we should see a draft report on that. And I think that covers all of our major projects. So we're moving through them. Still waiting on the, we'll be waiting for bonding to become a little bit more of a reality before we can move forward with Great Sacandaga Lake's ice sluice remediation and the addition of some of that work. So that's kind of on hold until that bonding is in place.
Okay. We still have to do the warning system?
And the warning system also. Speaking of which, actually just got caught wind of Brookfield installing sirens for their Stewart's Bridge project, which was the first I had heard of it. I don't think any of us had heard of that.
Really?
Which doesn't necessarily surprise me because we deal with the water resource managers, and their compliance folks are the ones who are doing, and from time to time I get the feeling that they don't necessarily talk with each other about what one department is doing, which kind of surprises me because they're not, I mean, with regard to an individual site like that, they're not a big company. I mean, they are a big company, but when you're working on a project like this, I think they work more closely together, so I'm surprised that we didn't hear. However, I guess they are planning to put in some warning sirens from Stewart's Bridge down to at least to Hadley.
Really?
And so I have reached out to the water resource engineer who has relayed my request to their compliance engineer on whether or not we could somehow integrate our systems at least get the information on their system so that we could maybe utilize their sirens. Actually, I got caught wind of it through the USGS, who had been asked by Brookfield to use one of their gauging sites as a site for the siren. And so the USGS, because we're the co-op at that site, they called us to make sure that it was all right with us to have the siren placed out there. So
The gauge immediately.
gauge downstream of Stewart's Bridge. Yeah. And so something might come of that. It sounds like they're, in terms of procuring equipment or siting it consistent with ours, they're too far along in the project. Since we still would have to go back out and hire a consultant to do final siting for our sirens. But, at the very least, we can find out what kind of equipment they have, and maybe it would be suitable, to satisfy a couple of our sites anyway.
That'd be
And
nice.
I don't know anything about how they're controlling it, where they intend to have the control system. But we'll try to find some more information out on that. Might save us a little bit of effort, at least at a few sites.
Good.
They won't be extended all the way downstream as far. We need to go down, as it stands now, FERC would like us to go all the way down to Glens Falls. So that's far more extensive, good 8-10 miles further than what Brookfield is responsible for, I think. But it would eliminate maybe a little bit of effort on that part. Save us a little money maybe too. If there are any other questions, or if there are questions, I'll take those. If not, that completes my report.
I have none. No, thanks.
Thank you.
John, your report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
My report starts on page 96. First of all, I just want to show you some photos when we were up for the Stillwater Board meeting.
Oh,
There's
this
a before and after photos of the riprap that we installed.
exposed and installed.
Up here where the stakes are is where we brought the riprap up to. The next photo shows that, and we did that all in house. The guy did a good job.
Yeah, it's nice.
And when you were there, when they were just breaking ground, if you will. And that's a picture of the final result. Really come out good.
How far up does that lake get when it's high water on the photo here?
In the first photo, it comes right up to the grass.
Really?
Yeah, at high water.
That's, that should be pretty close to the top of the flash boards.
Right.
So,
Right.
around 79.3 or so.
Wow.
79.3 to 1680 elevation. Nice job.
Yeah, that's nice.
And the access permit renewal were mailed beginning of this month, and we're starting to get them back in. So staff is working, involved in that pretty heavily, and we've also had Cheryl come up from the Albany office, and she's assisting in that process also. So. Let's see here. The other thing, the Bachelorville Bridge, I think I've updated you a little bit on that, that's completed, and there's a lot of excess riprap, if you will, that was left over from the job, from construction, and they were looking to get rid of all that riprap for free. So there was numerous municipalities, counties, private contractors, and we had 2 trucks over there for probably 2.5 weeks hauling stone. We estimated probably 130 loads we hauled.
Wow.
Average 9 tons at a cost of $12 a ton. We're estimating about $14,000 worth of stone that we received.
Which we'd otherwise buy.
Right.
And budget for.
So we stored a lot of it at the Conklinville Dam. We got permission with DEC to store some at the Saratoga County Boat Launch. There's a big area there. We stored some at our field office at Sacandaga, and there was several riprap jobs that needed stone, so the guys delivered the stone right there, dumped it, and now they're in the process going back and distributing the stone around for riprap protection, so. I think that's all I have. If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Nope, I don't have any. Probably ought to think about readdressing the permit system someday again, too. Fee structure. But there's got to be inequities in it. No, thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions from the board? What do you got?
Mr. Chairman, one of you last month, and I don't remember who, raised the question about.
Probably a couple months, maybe.
Maybe a couple of months ago, about tablets for the board
Oh, yeah.
members because of the volume of paper that you bring to the meetings and everything that we distribute. Mr. Ferraro did check with the state contract, and they are available, the $4.79 piece. And I mean, certainly the positive side of it is that you're going to have your board package and every document we distribute to the board, which volume upon volume, you can have available with you. Really, the board's pleasure as far as what you think the needs are. We can get them if
It's a 7-man board.
members.
So, I mean, I know what kind of volume of paperwork I've generated in the last 4.5 years in my house. And it's not just the paper itself, it's the room I needed to store it, and I finally dispose of it properly.
It's a lot easier to dispose of it off of,
Well, you'd be able to keep it.
or keep it.
Yeah.
Either way.
So you need a motion to order, once you just order 7 tablets, and each one
How
would
much
be
you say the
just.
price was?
Well, they're $4.79 a piece. Right now, we've only got 4 members.
Oh, $4.79 a piece, I thought.
I think it's 79. That's
No.
We all wish, but
Okay,
Yeah.
well, let me back up then. $4.79 is a little different than 79.
$4.79 a piece.
Well, you have 4 board members, yeah.
Right, they don't discount them a whole lot. I was kind of
There's not a
surprised
whole lot
that,
of market.
No, you can
that
get
they
them
didn't have a
on-
better, we may be able to get a better price, but that's
you
what
can
was
get
out
them
on.
Internet, I think cheaper than that.
You probably would, but,
What's
yeah,
the brand
we
of
try to stay with state contract, we want
Yeah.
to give the state its ability to leverage, so if we pay a few bucks more, I mean, the state makes out in the whole, just to keep the volume up, but I don't think we're gonna get them hugely cheaper than
No.
that, so.
But I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, if you wish, we'll do that.
Go ahead.
And as new members come
Okay.
on, and we're hopeful that, still hopeful,
They stay a while.
that's right, and that we have new board members coming up, if we go that route, then incoming members at that point, we get a tablet for it.
Okay, yeah, why don't we go that route, because I think it would be nice to move into the 21st century.
I can make that happen.
You know, stuff in this meeting, I've been using them since I came here.
Right.
Great.
I know a couple months ago, I started to address the volume of paper.
Only one.
I literally had 3 banker's boxes full of paperwork. Okay. All right. Nothing else? Thanks. All right, we'll probably go into executive session. I don't believe we're,
No, I was gonna say, can we get a 3-minute break?
oh, yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
we have a,
Hold on, we have anything else? Any
we have
other
a
business?
meeting to,
You want to do that before we go? 'Cause we're not going to do any
Yeah,
business
because then
afterwards.
we
Then
don't
we
have
just
anything to
adjourn.
do when we come back, we can just adjourn.
Okay, so I need a motion for the next board meeting, which is
January 14th.
Johnstown?
We may, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
We may want to push that meeting, at least, maybe we want to make sure we have a quorum. And right now, we don't have any new members. Make sure we have a quorum present. So I can't say that we're going to have a new member by January 14th or not. And given that, I understand that Mr. Stover may not be available.
Right.
On the 14th.
Well,
so
let's
we want-
schedule it, and then we'll address it if we have to in January. That's fine.
Okay.
I mean, I
Yeah,
understand your
I
point,
agree.
yeah. One of these days, we're
Well,
just gonna
prove
have
it
to
subject
light a
to-
fire under somebody and say, look, we're running 4 members. We can't even approve a bond right now until we get a 5th member. so.
You can approve this resolution subject to the date
Yeah, we
being
can change
changed, I mean, subject to availability.
You can call me up, I'll prove it.
We-
If only we could do telephone.
We've attempted that in the past, if I remember right.
What about just reschedule it to February?
Well, we'll schedule it. If we have to, we'll cancel it and schedule it in February. Let's schedule it for now and
So schedule it for this date, subject to,
subject to the
you know,
availability. before.
rescheduling based on board member availability.
Yeah, that's fine. So I need a motion for the January meeting?
So move.
Need a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Hayes, Mr. Finkel.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Done deal. Well, if we have to change it, we have to change it.
Do you want him to do a motion to go to executive session?
Yes.
Need a motion to adjourn to executive session, and we will not be conducting any business after we come out of it.
Make that motion.
Mr. Hayes,
Need a second?
Mr. Stover,
All right.
vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
For collective bargaining, litigation, and personnel.